Hi, everybody, and welcome back to the Integrated Self podcast. We are here with episode 15, and today's episode topic, I want to talk about peace and how we can create more peace in our lives. I think this is pretty awesome that we're going to be talking about this week. I release episodes every Thursday, but kind of as we're in the holiday season, I feel like a lot of people, it depends on who you are and kind of how you think about the holidays. And I just feel like this season can get really stressful for people. And while it's really awesome, the holiday season is full of joy and fun and, gatherings and getting together and celebrating things, I think that a lot of us struggle at this time of year because we're looking forward to the holidays, depending on who you are. But there's also like a part of you that's like, okay, the year's coming to an end. And so we start to kind of reflect on this year and find ourselves maybe satisfied, maybe dissatisfied with how the year went. And I think that a lot of us are starting to value different things. I don't know. Hopefully, if you're here, you value peace. But I feel like if you resonate with me and, what I talk about and who I am, I just feel like at least the people around me and that I've been seeing and, people in this community of health and wellness and mindset and all these things, right? Like a lot of us are valuing peace, and a lot of my DMs or comments, even if I post a reading or if I post something and I mention peace and feeling peaceful, a lot of people struggle when it comes to like how to create that feeling in your life. Because I truly believe that any feeling we want to feel is available to us at any time, right? Like right now, I could choose to feel peaceful or I could choose to feel stressed, right? Like this doesn't mean and take away or invalidate things that are going on in your life. But at the end of the day, I always tell my clients that you're in control of what you allow into your life, what you're allowing to happen, what you tolerate, right? Like there are things that are in our control. And I truly believe like I lived a life where I had no boundaries at all. And I really thought that that was normal. I thought that was a scary term and boundaries were only meant to be set if you are being mistreated. For those, rare situations where you have to set a boundary. And it wasn't until I think the first epiphany when I really had this epiphany of peace and boundaries, and that boundaries should exist in every relationship that you have, is when I think I saw my dad meet my now stepmom, and kind of just seeing them together, seeing their relationship and seeing, their boundaries, right? Like boundaries should be a part of every relationship, like I'm thinking about my best friend right now. And although it's never been set, like there hasn't been an instance where we've had to speak about boundaries and set them with each other. There are like basically invisible boundaries that neither of us cross just out of respect for each other. Like, it's so funny that I'm talking about this, but my best friend is actually my boyfriend's twin brother's girlfriend. So my boyfriend is a twin, and his brother's girlfriend is my best friend. And so one of like the boundaries or the unspoken boundaries that we have in our relationship is like we obviously don't like we view each other as family now because we've both been in their lives for so many years that we look at each other as family, and so we treat each other as such. Like we don't talk bad about each other. Like even if my girlfriend's going through something and she's venting or whatever, like I don't disrespect her. I don't disrespect her relationship. Boundaries should be a part of every relationship that you have. So creating peace in your life is really kind of asking yourself, like, what are you allowing in, right? What you allow in is your choice, and it's always up to you. So there are a couple of things that we can do to create peace in our life, right? And some of these things are up to you, right? Like I realized a hard pill to swallow for me is on the beginning of my journey when I realized I kind of just hit an emotional rock bottom where I didn't know who I was. I didn't feel connected to myself. I let people walk all over me. I was terrified to even confront anybody or set a boundary. And I realized that boundaries are actually how you create peace in your life. So essentially, what you allow in, right? Like into your energy, into your mind, right? So the content that you watch, into your body, all of these things are up to you. We make choices every single day. I think there was a study done, but there was like some crazy number of the amount of choices that we make or decisions that we make every single day. And it's a lot, right? Like you choose when you wake up, you choose how you wake up, what mood you're in when you wake up, your first thought when you wake up, what you eat for breakfast, who gets an answer and their text messages and their emails, right? Like you're actually in control of way more than you think. And this is actually freeing to realize. It shouldn't be fearing or fearful to realize. Because once you realize that you're in control of way more than you think, that means that you have extreme autonomy over your own life and kind of allowing yourself to pick and choose what you allow in. Because everything we allow into our mind, body, and spirit will either create expansion and happiness and fulfillment and joy, or it will drain our energy and leave us stressed and in fear and out of control, right? And so it really comes down to the decisions that you're making, right? So what you allow in is your choice, and it's always your choice. And another thing is that it kind of takes radical accountability. It takes you being able to sit with yourself and truly ask yourself and respond honestly, how can I create more peace in my life? When do I notice that I'm not peaceful? When I feel stressed, when I feel aggravated, irritated, right? Like what are the actual situations, that are creating dysregulation within you? When you feel limited and stressed and in fear and miserable, right? Like what are these situations? So it kind of takes a little bit of accountability and honesty to look at your journey or look at your life, look at who has access to you, look at what content you're consuming, right? Like, of course, I'm always going to say that we shouldn't be spending so much time on social media because honestly, if you can think of how much time you were on your phone today, that's how much time you weren't present in your own life. And so I kind of think about it like that. Like when I am on social media, I want to be consuming content that resonates with me, that is inspirational, motivational, or educational, right? Like or just something that's funny, like following people that, if you click on Instagram, if you click on TikTok, if you click on whatever app, that it won't add fear, stress, anxiety in your life, and it will actually provide you with expansion and joy and laughter or learning, right? Like, think about what you consume and why. Like the amount of videos that come across my For You page on TikTok of people just dancing to the same song that I've heard so many times. I don't know these people. I don't care. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, what do you value? We need to really get down to the root cause of what you value and what you're allowing in. Because a lot of times when I ask people these questions, I'm like, well, what are you doing that's making you feel anxious? What is it? And they're like, well, I'm constantly seeing people online and I'm comparing myself to them. Then don't look at those people online, right? Or we need to kind of let go of that for a little bit so we can heal and figure out what's going on within you, that you get triggered or immediately compare yourself to others when you open Instagram, right? Like I literally went through a social media cleanse, and I just, this could look like so many different things and you can curate it however you want, but either take a day off all of social media and see how you feel, right? Like delete certain apps so that you can't even click on them when you subconsciously go to, right? Or I just feel like we spend so much time catching up on other people's lives and what other people are doing, that when we finish that and we lock our phone and we look at our own life, we are extremely dissatisfied. And it's like, well, let's just reel it back in, right? Because when you're scrolling for 2 hours at night, you're not really choosing or asking yourself, is this beneficial for me to consume? How is this contributing to my life? Am I learning anything? Is this just wasting time? Like, these are certain things that I started asking myself, right? And it takes accountability to realize and look at yourself and be like, damn, the reason why I don't feel peace in my life is because I'm constantly giving to everyone else around me and they don't reciprocate that. Right? And so literally the answer to creating peace in your life is boundaries with yourself and boundaries with others. Okay. And I plan on doing like a masterclass all about boundary setting and boundaries so that you guys can feel confident in setting boundaries and feel like you're doing it for yourself, right? So my mindset shifted when I realized that boundaries actually aren't harsh. They don't have to be rude and mean and confrontational and argumentative. Boundaries are for you. Like, you think that you're setting the boundary for the other person, but it's actually for you. Because what happens when you set that boundary is that that person no longer talks to you that way. That person no longer treats you that way. That person stops blowing up your phone and immediately expecting an answer, right? Like, this is how you create more peace, because you're controlling, like, think about like a little dial, and you're kind of like controlling who has access to you. And choosing in that moment of like, you know what, I have 15 unread messages and 3 unread emails, but I'm going to sit down with my husband, wife, kids, whatever, and have dinner tonight and just be present and just enjoy that. Like, choosing to prioritize where you want to be in the present moment. That's what will create more peace. Okay? And sometimes creating more peace in your life looks like a mindset shift. So let's pretend that, you work for your boss, right? Super general, relatable example is that you work for your boss and you don't like your boss. Your boss is micromanaging, they're rude, they are inconsiderate, you just don't like them, right? And so every time you go into work or they come into your office or want to speak with you, you get anxiety, or you feel like, oh my gosh, like, what are they going to say? Blah, 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 right? Right? But my thing is that a mindset shift could create more peace in that situation, because you could start to think new thoughts about that. The way that you're perceiving your boss is causing you stress because you're choosing to perceive them as rude, evil, like they're so mean, they don't consider me, and they always have something negative to say about my performance and blah, 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 blah. But that's you taking them and their energy and what they say as truth. Right? So a mindset shift to create more peace in that situation would look like and this doesn't mean that it happens overnight. It takes effort from you to constantly like reframe your thoughts when you think about your boss, but choosing to be like, you know what? I choose not to get stressed, and I choose not to allow this person to have power over me and dictate what I feel, right? Because the most powerless you could ever feel is allowing someone else to kind of make you feel a certain way. What your boss says and does is out of your control. But what is in your control is your perception of yourself, and the fact that you won't allow someone like that to affect the way you feel internally. And this is a hard pill to swallow, right? Because if we're not careful about looking at how we're perceiving situations, problems, and stressors, we might just allow them to stress us out, allow them to make us upset, right? Like, someone says something negative to you when you're walking down the street, making fun of your outfit or like whatever it is, and you allow that to make you question yourself and, oh my God, like my outfit is ugly. No, it's not. You allowed that person to make you think that way and feel that way about yourself, right? And some people might not want to hear that, but that's the truth. And that's what I started doing to create more peace in my life is, how do I want to think about myself? How do I want to feel today? And then knowing that anything else that happens that day, I'll figure it out. I'll accept it and I'll figure out a solution, and I'll stand up for myself in front of that boss if I need to. But I will be damned if they make me feel anxious all day long at work just for existing when I'm not doing anything wrong, right? This is a huge lesson that I had to learn in my life. Was, I think I met with my mentor about 5 years ago, maybe 6 years ago at this point. And I met with my mentor, and I was kind of dealing with like falling out of friendships and feeling like these girls that I was friends with for so long, like they didn't like me anymore, or they were judging me or whatever. And she was like, and it made me feel insecure about what I was doing in my life. And I was telling her that, and she's like, why? Like, don't you love what you're doing? And I was like, absolutely. And she was like, so you're allowing these girls to make you feel insecure. Like, they're projecting onto you, and you're literally taking that and choosing to feel that way, choosing to be like, you're right, and that is true, and now I feel this way, and now I'm thinking these thoughts. Like, no, you are always in control of the thoughts you think and the feelings you feel, right? And it takes effort, it takes actual real life practice when someone's projecting, when someone's triggering you, when someone's trying to push your buttons, and you like reframe that in real time, and you can be like, you know what? I choose how I feel in this moment, and I will not allow this person to project their guilt onto me and make me feel guilty, right? Like, this is another thing that a lot of people come to me with. They're like, oh, well, we have to go see so and so when we're visiting because they like, I'll feel guilty if I don't. Like, they'll make us feel guilty. And I'm like, no one can make you feel anything. You're allowing them to project their guilt onto you for not seeing them when you're in town and choosing to carry that guilt that's not even yours to carry. They're projecting onto you and you're absorbing it and carrying it around with you. That's not even your energy. That's not even your guilt. Right? And then I would ask them, do you feel guilty if you came and you didn't see them? No, but I know they would make me feel guilty with their comments. Well, fuck that. Fuck that. Right? As long as you're doing what you need to do, taking care of yourself and prioritizing yourself, and people are mad that they're not included in those plans, that's a them problem. Right? Like, this is a huge thing I had to learn. And this all goes with like self-worth and value, is like, once you value yourself and you know what you deserve, it doesn't matter if someone thinks that I'm ugly. It doesn't matter if someone thinks that, oh, who are you to start a podcast? Like, trying to make me feel and like second guess myself. Right. And it's like, I choose not to agree with that. I choose not to absorb that and call it truth for me. Right? Like, I choose to start my podcast. If you have a problem with that, you can't budge me. You can't make me question myself. You can't make me feel bad for that. You're trying to, but I won't allow it. Again, it always goes back to what you allow in, right? Another situation that I had, and this happens all the time, you guys, is, and this is why being self-aware is so important, is like, I had someone visiting a couple weeks ago, and they were over my house, and we were just kind of catching up and stuff. And they made a comment like, well, you're smaller than me anyway, or you've always been skinnier than me. And in that moment, I couldn't help but feel that like they wanted me to disagree. Like, they're saying that, hoping that I'd be like, no, you're skinnier. Right. And it doesn't fucking matter to me. So I didn't respond with anything. I think I was like putting something away in my drawer, and I just didn't, like, I acted like I didn't hear it. But I'm like, you're not going to make me feed into your insecurity. Like, whether that's true or not, it doesn't fucking matter. And I'm not going to feed into your insecurity because you're asking for that validation right now. You know what I'm saying? Like, this is how I kind of hold that awareness in real life situations. Like, I realized in that moment that this person was trying to like get me to tell them that they're skinnier than me. But in reality, I noticed that, and I was like, I'm not going to allow you to make me feel guilty for agreeing or disagreeing. Like, why did you say that? Like, there was an underlying motive for saying that, and I just chose in that moment not to participate. But just things like this, you guys, and it's so important to realize what's going on in the moment and being like, okay, what's going on? How is this person's words making me feel? And is this true? Right? Like, it's one thing if someone comes to you and is in loving terms, trying to help you understand that you hurt their feelings, and you're like, okay, like, I truly apologize. Like, I won't do that again, whatever. But it's one thing for that. And then a totally other thing to feel like crap and regret and guilt and like all this stuff, right? Like, definitely learn your lesson. If you did mistreat someone or you did hurt someone's feelings, it's important to know, like, and have that conversation, but walk away with the lesson learned and an apology, right? Like, you don't have to walk away and be like, oh my God, I feel so guilty and I'm carrying around this guilt and this shame and this regret. And like, as long as you learn your lessons, like, people do things that they don't mean to all the time. And as long as you recognize that, or someone's trying to voice that to you and you understand where they're coming from, just accept, love yourself, forgive yourself, and move on, So sometimes creating peace in our life is like a mindset shift. It's choosing to perceive the stressor, the fear, the situation in a completely different way, right? Like, for example, another example would be like, running into the same obstacles in your life and choosing to be like, you know what, this same obstacle keeps presenting itself. So instead of me freaking out right now and being like, oh my God, it's happening again. Like what's wrong? Of course the universe hates me, like whatever. Instead, be like, you know what? I've been noticing that I'm running into the same obstacle. There must be a lesson for me here. There must be an opportunity to learn something new here. That's why this situation keeps coming up for me, to show me something. And once I learn what that is and I don't repeat that, I won't live the same struggle and obstacle over and over and over again. I'll close out that cycle and move on to bigger and better. That's how this works, right? So that's another way you can do it is, identifying how you're choosing to perceive certain things and choosing a more expanded or freeing way to look at that situation. So one way to create peace in your life is to really evaluate, who are you giving your access to? What things are you consuming? How long are you consuming things online for? Right? Like you can even notice this. It doesn't take a superpower. You can realize this when you're on your phone scrolling for a couple hours and then you put your phone down and you realize that you were pretty like feeling peaceful or feeling pretty good when you sat down. And then maybe you saw a video or maybe you were watching something sad and now you don't feel that way. You actually feel drained or heavier or less happy after you spent all that time consuming content. And so there must be something you're consuming that switched your mood or made you feel a different way, right? Like there's distractions and temptations around us all the time. So what are you allowing in, right? Into your mind, into your body, right? Another thing is alcohol. And I am so much a person of to each their own, right? I actually grew up with alcoholic parents, and I honestly didn't have my first drink. I had my first drink actually at 14, but that was only because I had my woman stuff happening, and that's what my mom did to like help my woman pain, was to give me a drink, which when I was 14, I was like, what? Like this is crazy, but that's a whole story for another time. But my relationship with alcohol has changed because I've identified how that influences me, right? Like in college, everyone was drinking, everyone was getting rowdy and crazy, and like things just happened every weekend. And it was like, well, that's what happens when you drink, yet la da da, la di da. But now that I'm older, I'm 25 now, I noticed that I don't really drink that much. If I have friends coming into town or a trip scheduled, a holiday, I'll have a drink. Like I don't need to drink. And I also noticed that the more that I would drink, the less obviously I had control over myself. And so I realized that like alcohol, obviously, like this sounds so silly when I say it out loud because everyone's going to be like, well, duh. But I didn't really like fully understand it, that alcohol made me act like someone I wasn't. It kind of brought out this side to me that was, alcohol really brings out anything that's in your subconscious, how you really feel. And that's why a lot of fights break out when people are drinking, or a lot of disagreements and hurtful things are said, is because you have the courage to say them. Anything that's in your subconscious mind when you're drinking will come out, right? If you're not aware, of course. So I started realizing that when I was drinking, it would start off as like, oh, everyone's having a great time and everyone would get funny and silly or whatever. But the more I drank, the less I like connected to myself. Like if you could picture like Arianna right here, like if you're listening, just picture me like just standing in a room. It kind of felt like when I was drinking, like an altered personality, or like whatever, that alter ego, like another version of me came to the forefront, and it was cynical and bitter and rude, and like I didn't like that version of me. I didn't like it. And it felt like so unlike me, and I would have intrusive thoughts, or I would have moments that I would think things and I'd be like, that's not me though. Like why am I so in this negative mindset, and it's the alcohol. And so now like I do drink, but I just be careful. Like I don't drink during the week. There's no reason to. But also maybe just the fact that I've had alcoholic parents, or honestly, I was talking to my parents about it recently, and like one of them was like, I don't even know if I was an alcoholic. It was just like the relationship and like all this stuff. So I say that with a grain of salt, but I kind of experienced that, and I saw that from a young age, and then I started drinking, and I realized that I would embarrass myself, right? And I would say things that I regret. And like that anxiety is what kills me. Like I would rather go to bed at 9:30, not drink or consume anything, and just wake up the next morning feeling like me and feeling excited for a brand new day and feeling like my own energy instead of drinking, waking up, being like, I don't remember last night. What did I do? Did I hurt anyone's feelings? Like, hurting myself. I remember even in college, which, this seems normal because it's in college, but it's really not okay, is that I would drink so much that like I would fall. I would, do stupid things, and the next morning I would wake up and I would have anxiety and I wouldn't remember anything. And I'd just be like, why am I doing this to myself? So what you allow in also has to do with your food, your drinks, right? Like asking yourself, how can I create more balance in my nutrition? Like, do you notice that the days that you eat, Lucky Charms for breakfast and then, frozen meal for lunch and then, takeout for or fast food for dinner, like you probably don't feel that great. So being able to prioritize your mind, body, and spirit is so, so important. And just picking and choosing like what you want to allow into your life at any given time is super important. Like if you're going through something with your family and someone's trying to like make plans with you, and you realize that that's stressing you out, creating peace would be like, you know what, I'm going to pass on this experience, or can we plan this a little bit later? I'm just dealing with something else right now. I don't have the energy for this. Like, I'm so sorry, or whatever it is, right? Like, be able to have autonomy, freedom over your own life and choose, right? And don't feel guilty about it. Choose what you want to allow in. Okay. So the first one is like sometimes creating more peace would be like identifying things in your life that stress you out and choosing to kind of set boundaries. And so boundaries are said sometimes if you need to say them. Like if you need to actually communicate to someone and they keep crossing it, or they don't understand that what they're doing is hurtful or rude or, affecting you in a negative way, obviously you could say the boundary. So say like, hey, I just wanted to let you know that when you invite people over our house without asking me, it makes me feel weird because I come into my own home and I didn't know who was here. I didn't know they were coming over, and, whatever, like saying the boundary with love is super important. But boundaries are most effective when you can show them. So a lot of the times people ask me like, well, how do you create boundaries from a place of love if, they keep crossing over it? Do you just keep repeating the boundary? And my answer to that would be obviously repeat the boundary. Like if you set a boundary with someone and they say that they hear you and they understand, but then they keep crossing the boundary, I would say it once more. Okay. So I'd be like, hey, remember our conversation, blah, 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 blah. And they're like, oh yeah, you're right, whatever. But majority of the time, the people that cross over the boundary, either they're doing that because either they think you're not that serious about it, so they kind of keep doing it to see if there would be any consequence. So people that cross your boundaries kind of don't believe you, or they don't take you that seriously. Some people just straight up don't care. And they're entitled. They think they're entitled to your energy or your time or your home, right? Like, for example, a lot of parents, like when kids start having their own families, and the grandparents assume that they can always come over unannounced and whatever. And it's like, no, like they think that they're entitled because they're your parents, things like this. But my number one thing would be actions speak louder than words. So if someone repeatedly is crossing the boundary and you speaking it and reaffirming the boundary isn't doing anything, what needs to happen at that point is you to show them where the boundary lies. And what I mean by that is, let's go back to the grandparents example. Let's just pretend that you guys had a kid and your parents think that they can come over anytime. They live right down the street, whatever. Like the first boundary you set was, hey, can you call me before you come over, just so I know? And they're like, yeah, of course. So now they do that, but they're still coming over like, hey, I'm in the driveway. Can you unlock your door? And you're just like, what the frig, And they keep crossing over that boundary. What it would look like by showing them what the boundary is you saying, they're like, oh, can you unlock the door? And you're like, actually, you know what? We're having like our own family day today. So I'm so sorry. Like, you can see your granddaughter or grandson, this day or next week or whatever. Right. Like saying, hey, you're not coming in, like in a loving way. Like, we're actually watching a movie tonight. So can we see you tomorrow? Right. Like, trying to push them and show them like, nope, like we're unavailable. Right. Or like, what is the consequence for that person if they cross over? And this is something that I think about in case someone, like I set a boundary and they start to cross over it. I ask myself, okay, what is going to happen? What is their consequence for crossing my boundary? So it could just mean like less access to you. Right. So for example, your parents keep coming over unannounced. They don't care. They just walk right in, whatever. It starts with maybe, you know what, the weekends we're together as a family and we can do like Wednesday dinners together, like creating more of a structure and offering that to them, and then choosing to stand in that and being like, you know what, mom, dad, I have my own family now. And I'm so happy that you're so supportive and loving and, attentive to us. But at the same time, I would like some time with my husband and wife, or my wife, because this is my family too, you know? So showing them what happens when they keep crossing the boundary over. Another example is if someone, you have someone in your family that doesn't treat you right or calls you out and is just very like judgy or whatever, and you start setting boundaries with them and they keep crossing it and being judgmental and rude, to your kids or yourself, there must be a consequence for that person, right? So that the next time they say something, they realize how serious you are. They realize what happens to them when they keep doing that. So again, it could look like you leaving, right? Oh, yeah, I know I told you like we don't tolerate this kind of language, so I'm just going to go, Or you don't always answer their phone calls. You don't immediately answer their texts. There has to be some sort of consequence for the person. Okay. And I think that once they realize what that is, then you start showing them and sticking to that boundary. They start taking you seriously. And that's when you notice that the behavior is no longer present. Right. So I've noticed this in my own life that the more that I stand firm in my boundaries, people are left with the choice to either respect them or not. But they know that if they don't get to talk to me as often. They don't get to come over. They don't get to, see my kids, whatever it is. I don't have kids, but that's just an example. So they learn, oh shit, they're serious. And that's when the boundary is actually beneficial for you guys. So the boundary is set for you. It's set for you to have the life and the circumstances that you want to have, that you are in control of. So one thing that could help you is kind of developing a list of non-negotiables. And this is something that we're doing in Inner Guidance Academy. It's not really related to like creating peace in your life. It's more so like connected to the next version of you and like where you see yourself going and being and feeling like, and like inching our way there together. But creating a list of non-negotiables for you, like asking yourself, okay, what do I choose to tolerate and what am I not going to tolerate from here on out? Right. And then choosing that anytime those situations arise, it's a perfect opportunity for you to practice setting boundaries, practice voicing yourself. Right. And it's not for that person. It's for you. It's so that you're not treated that way anymore. People aren't just barging in your house all the time. It's for you. And then before we kind of summarize all of these things, I want to leave you with this last point, which is asking yourself, like, when do you feel not peaceful? Like, what are the situations in your life that come up pretty frequently for you that you feel like, you know what, it's happening again and this person making me feel like crap, or oh, I can't keep doing this to myself because I'm so exhausted, right? Or when I allow this to happen, I always regret it. Like whatever it is, what are the things in your life, whether they're people you choose to be around and surround yourself with, the times that you wake up and go to bed, and if those are beneficial, if you are, around friends that are comparing themselves against you. So every time you go and you want to have fun, it's just like this tit for tat competition, and it drains your energy, right? Like, what are the things in your life that you can start setting non-negotiables with, right? What are the things that stress you out, or things that drain your energy? And kind of how can you curate that area of your life or curate that situation to be in your favor, to benefit you, right? Like, are there people that you spend time with that drain your energy? So that doesn't mean that you never see them again, but it could be, the next time that they text you to hang out, and you already know that you've had an exhausting week and going out with them would only drain you further. That boundary within yourself would be like saying no that one time and choosing to stay home and like kind of recalibrate your energy instead of choosing to go with them, knowing that your energy will be even more drained when you come back. Right? So like, these are just the little situations. Ask yourself these questions as you're moving throughout your day. For me, sometimes it's like, I'm starving. What do I get for food when I'm out and about? And like, of course, my part of my brain, I don't really honestly eat fast food anymore. I try not to unless we're on like a road trip or something. I'm not one to like go out and hit the fast food restaurants all the time. But if I'm out and about and I'm hungry and I'm going to get something to eat, I always ask myself, what's going to make me feel good right now? Is it going to be McDonald's and their fries and their milkshake? Or is it going to be maybe Core Life or a sub? Something that's actually, I know is going to make me feel good, not only full, but like give me energy instead of me feeling like bloated and crappy and having a stomach ache after, right? So start looking out for yourself. Start asking yourself, you know what? I'm in control of a lot more than I think. I'm way more powerful than I think. So how can I start to create peace in my life? What does that look like for me? Try to visualize a version of you that is at peace, that is peaceful in their life, and ask yourself, okay, what's the difference between them and me now? What are some small things that I can address right now to create more peace in my life? Just to summarize, you guys, I want to reiterate that what you allow in is your choice, right? And it takes a level of honesty, right? Like, if you're lying to yourself when you're asking yourself these questions, you're not going to make any changes, and therefore you're still going to feel like you need more peace in your life, right? So it's like, a lot of us think that being honest with ourselves is bad, and like we're admitting the bad things to ourselves, or we're admitting like whatever, and it's sad and scary. But in reality, once you admit it to yourself, you're able to change it, right? And actually see the results of that, which is in this episode, more peace. So, don't feel guilty. Like, I know a lot of us place so much guilt on ourselves, and we're like, well, I just had a baby, and of course, like, it's the first grandchild of the family. So when I do want my parents around my kid, but there could be a perfect balance with that, right? Like, there could be boundaries set in place where that's happening, but like, you also get your own time, your own space in your home to walk down the stairs in your robe and not see your parents laying on the couch. Like, you know what I'm saying? There are certain things that can be done. It doesn't mean that the whole situation needs to be scrapped and, not participated in, but it does take more of a conscious, like, reflection, like you choosing to evaluate, like, okay, this situation stresses me out, but how can I attack it, or how can I address it and actually leave that situation or solve that problem so that I have more peace? So a couple of things to reiterate is that it takes a level of accountability, right? And sometimes creating more peace in your life starts with a mindset shift. It starts with you learning to perceive things in a different way that's going to be more liberating, right? When we perceive a situation, you can kind of tell if your energy is like contracted and like minimal and dissolved and not really there. And you can start to change that and think a thought that is so expansive that you feel open and more liberated and lighter, right? Like, you can feel your body shift into different energies based on the thoughts you're thinking. So that's how I move throughout my day a lot. And this is a topic we're talking about in Inner Guidance Academy as well, is choosing, like, when we're kind of overthinking or we're in fear thinking about something, it's kind of like, okay, pay attention to your energy. Pay attention to how you feel in that moment. What does your body feel like? You might feel like you're slouching, like you're like in fear, and you feel heavy and limited and kind of like sucked down. And then when you can reframe that thought and start thinking in a more freeing way, in a more abundant way, right? And switch your thoughts, you can actually feel that your energy is more expanded. It's lighter. You feel better. You feel free, right? And you can use this feeling, feeling these subtle feelings that you have to kind of operate in your own life, right? Like when you're with a friend, do you feel like you can relax and you're comfortable in your own skin, or do you constantly have your shoulders up here and you're, fixing your hair every 2 seconds and wondering, like, that would feel like that energy feels so different than when you can truly be in someone's presence and feel relaxed and enjoy their energy, right? Like you can tell around depending on who you're around. Okay. So sometimes it's a mindset shift, and sometimes it starts with identifying those things that cause us stress, right? And asking ourselves, okay, when do I feel not peaceful? What are the situations around me that I could switch or play around with to create more peace in my life, right? And then developing, again, like a list of non-negotiables, like asking yourself, like, where you draw the line in certain situations, like where you draw the line, where the boundary is. Telling yourself, okay, if they do that one more time, this is what's going to happen. So you're prepared in case that does happen, that person sees where your boundary is. There's a consequence for that. And you're already aware of that because you've already like reflected on what that would be. So it's just constantly like choosing to look at your life and evaluate, okay, this situation, like I know that I could feel more peace in my love life. Okay, what does that look like? How can I do that? What are the certain things that I can communicate to my partner to create more peace? Right? Maybe it's a schedule. Maybe it's like kind of divvying up and delegating certain things. And maybe it's just like the act of just communicating that to your partner. And they're like, oh, I got you, babe. Like we got this. And all you had to do was just say it. Right. And then you notice, oh, they're doing it. They're doing exactly what I asked. And now I feel so like a weight has been lifted off my shoulders. But you wouldn't have done that if you didn't know what needed to be changed and have the courage to speak up and communicate that for yourself. Right. Again, you communicated that for yourself. Now you have less on your shoulders. Right. So developing peace in your life looks so different for everybody, but I feel like people are valuing peace so much more. Along my journey, as I've healed certain things and started becoming more aware of myself and my own life, and kind of being like, okay, what needs to change? If I'm holding my vision in my mind, what am I currently doing that doesn't align with that? What are the people that I'm surrounding myself with that bring me down from that vision, that make me feel like, who am I? And that they don't believe in me, like evaluating, because everything around you, everything that you allow in does affect you. It'll have a positive or a negative effect, right? And so it just takes a little bit of evaluating and then choosing to like comb out and create the circumstances in your own life that will provide you with that feeling, right? And know that you get to feel peaceful whenever you want. I'm feeling peaceful right now as I'm recording this podcast, and then my boyfriend's making me dinner for the second time this week. He's so good about, again, like delegating certain things, right? So I said, I'm busy. I'm doing some stuff tonight, recording videos, content, whatever. He's like, I got you. I'm going to make dinner. And I'm so excited because after this, I get to go eat a big bowl of pasta. And I'm going to feel peaceful doing that. Okay. So a peaceful life is always right there next to you, right? And it just takes that conscious awareness of recognizing, you know what? I'm choosing to stew over the situation, even though I can't change it. I can create more peace in my life by redirecting my thoughts to something else, to something positive, to choosing to maybe even watch like a podcast that's educational or something to take your mind off of that, right? Like redirecting your thoughts. If you are overthinking and stewing over situations and regret in the past and all of that, right? Like creating more peace would be you recognizing that and being like, you know what? This isn't doing me any good. I'm not benefiting myself by, feeling into the situation that I can't change and that's out of my control, and then feeling the corresponding feelings of guilt, regret, shame. And what I can do right now in this moment is redirect my thoughts to something I appreciate, like looking at your kids, putting on your favorite movie, whatever it is, redirecting, getting yourself out of that energy into something else that's going to be beneficial, or recalibrate your energy, or make you laugh, or make you like feel so joyful, like snuggling your pet, whatever it is, right? It's different for everybody. But one of the number one questions I get is like, how do I actualize this vision I have? Like, I don't want to be stressed. I don't want to be living in fear all the time. I want to feel peaceful, and everyone deserves that. You deserve that, right? And then it's kind of like the catch is that comes from you, right? Like, no one's going to come into this room and be like, "Oh, don't worry, I made your life peaceful for the next week. I got you." No. This is created through you. So it takes your awareness and your decisions to create it for yourself, right? So creating peace in your life, start with the littler things. Start with your routine. Start with who has access to you. Start with when you get a text, seeing your phone and then being like, I'm not going to answer that right now, and see how you feel, right? Challenge yourself to not click on all your apps and spend the next half hour scrolling, even though you weren't really planning on doing that. Literally, it starts with you. It starts with you, because I don't know what you want your peaceful life to look like. It's going to look different for everybody. And so since it's different for everybody, you're in control. You're the one that decides and curates that life for yourself. It just takes being honest and being like, admitting to yourself, you know what? I could be thinking better thoughts over there. I could be, not participating in day drinking every Saturday. You know what? I could wake up a little bit earlier and go to bed a little bit earlier, so that when I wake up in the morning, I have enough time to get to this, or I have enough time to eat breakfast before I go to work. Whatever it is, start with the smaller things and notice the shift, notice the peace present when you actually follow through. Okay. I'm so excited about this episode, you guys. The last thing I want to talk about is that Inner Guidance Academy, which is my 6-week program, all about mind, body, spirit alignment, is launching on December 20th. So essentially this program, I give you a module for each week, each of the 6 weeks. You just click on week 1 and you watch the videos, you learn, you get the meditations, and you do the meditation each week. And then whatever I tell you to focus on that week. So it's very much like you have the step-by-step formula. You know what you're doing every single day. Every week we focus on something different. And it's really to get you to connect to your higher self, which is the version of you that is living their most successful, happiest, healthiest timeline, and connect to them and get a vision of your next best self. Right? What does that look like? What is the difference between you and them? And how we're going to start creating the steps to get you to become your next best self. And through that, we're going to connect you to your intuition. We're going to connect you to an abundance mindset. So there's going to be so much in this program, but my favorite thing about it, you guys, is that you get a meditation every week that is guided by me. So like, not only are you getting the results and the transformation of learning to trust yourself and trust the guidance that you're receiving, trust your intuition, feel confident and feel more peace and balanced, actually feel ready to become this next version of yourself and know what that is and connect to it and create the steps to become them. And then we're also talking about like alignment and synchronicity, because that's another question I get a lot, is like, how do I know I'm in alignment? How do I know when I'm not in alignment? How do I know for sure if something's for me or something's not? Something's aligned with me and that's the next step, or if it's this thing, right? So it's learning to really trust yourself, trust and know, and have the mindset that everything is happening for your highest good, and that you are an abundant being. You are a spiritual being living a human experience. And we're going to start connecting you to the universe. You're going to start feeling supported. You're going to start seeing the synchronicity around you as you follow your intuition and as we get yourself into alignment. It's going to be so freaking awesome. I'm sharing so much about this on my Instagram and on my TikTok, but I highly, highly recommend you guys. And this is a program that I created because we learn these things along our spiritual journey. But the number one thing I've heard people say is that their spiritual journey is really lonely and they really want a community. And that like they feel like they've been working on these skills for months, and they kind of wake up every day like clueless as to like what they really should do throughout the day and how to actually integrate these things in and see the progress. It's kind of just like people kind of feel like they're willy-nilly kind of waking up trying to like feel good all the time and hoping that their blessings come in. But let's actually get there. Let's actually create the progress, create the feelings, create the vision, and start getting yourself into alignment. And through the meditations, you'll learn to like regulate your nervous system, so you'll feel less fear, less stress, because you're choosing to meditate every day and connecting to your inner light, connecting to your divinity, which makes you feel limitless. Like it makes you realize your full potential. And so once you feel into that and you know that, it's kind of hard to like dim yourself down anymore. It's kind of hard to tell yourself that you're not worthy and you're not abundant and you're not good enough when you start to actually feel that way. We start to feel like you are enough and that the universe sees you and actually is supporting you. It's so liberating to actually feel connected and tapped in that way. And so that's Inner Guidance Academy. Doors open on December 20th, but those that join from December 20th to December 30th will receive 30% off. So you kind of want to get in that window from the 20th to the 30th if you want to get 30% off the program. Now, the other thing that I have that I'm offering right now are 20-minute pre-recorded readings. So I'm an intuitive card reader. I also have other abilities that I use. Like sometimes I don't need the cards. I can just channel the message from your spirit team, your angels. And so I am offering those now. I actually had a really awesome testimonial from one lady, and I'm still waiting on the other testimonial from the other. But yeah, that's another service that I offer in case you just need a little encouragement, a little pep talk, or you have a specific question that you'd like me to ask your spirit team and relay the information to you. That's another thing that I'm doing as well. So these are the first two offers that I'm having. I'm super, super excited about them. And then eventually I want to have a whole program that's like an in-depth program all about like healing your self-concept, like healing your insecurities and all of that stuff. But this is where we're starting. I just wanted to create like a 6-week kind of beginners kickstart program to really help you develop these skills where you learn to actually trust yourself and feel like you're making progress in your life. You're becoming that next version of you, and you feel peaceful and free, and like the universe is supporting you. The universe is on your side, and you see that happening around you. So super excited about that. You can join the waitlist right now. If you go to my bio, you can join the waitlist, and basically what you just receive is an email from me kind of explaining like what the program is like, what you get, what we're focusing on, what each module is. And that way, like when December 20th comes around, you know exactly all about Inner Guidance Academy and have hopefully chosen that it's right for you. I'm super, super excited, and I just wanted to touch on that. So I hope you guys have a great week and start creating peace in your life by setting boundaries, by creating a list of non-negotiables, which is another thing we're doing in Inner Guidance Academy, and super, super excited. So thank you guys so much for tuning into the show, and I will see you next week. See ya.